SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity. What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Jeff throwing heat this morning. Jeff is throwing heat. Gracious.
Bus
Good
driver already.
morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com, Simpson Family Jeeps. And my name is Neil with Simpson Family Jeeps. And I am joined, as usual, with my fantastic, lovely, not so attractive co-host who Jeff the Italian Stallion is throwing around just flex on us today. He goes, don't forget, I come from a professional industry.
Yes.
Wow. Tell us how you really feel, Jeffrey.
Okay, I'm at professional dress industry versus here where we.
I heard the words.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah, Jeff
So
is Jeff
good
is
morning,
doing
Colleen. Good morning, Daddy Jeep. We'll just change the subject there. I am Jeff, the producer, and I'm going to throw the ball over to.
Scott Brown, the mad scientist.
Did you forget your name?
You're so upset me.
I know,
this
you're
morning.
so upset him. Have you seen him in his suit, though? I mean, Scott
I
cleans
tell you
up.
what, yeah, that suit on you looked pretty sharp.
I was like,
Oh, my
I
goodness.
was like, oh, I'll wear my good flannel again.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, the whole conversation started because Scott has his official flannel that Amy picked out for him, I believe.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure that because there was a conversation about plaid.
That you're not plaid today.
For our listeners who are not, who are not able to
still
see,
plaid.
They're still plaid.
I have I made sure to wear a plaid long sleeve undershirt under my signature hustle.
Who's flexing?
tee.
The way he ripped that
Right?
jacket off.
Ah,
Look at those guns.
Right, I was making sure that I had that on lock. I didn't want you to be the only person in plaid today.
And flannel.
In
Yeah.
flannel, right?
It's a little cooler than a pullover.
It's a little cooler than a pullover. Yeah, for our listeners, Scott has this handsome gray flannel plaid, which fitting for the conversation, and Jeffrey has a signature pullover that he
Signature, yeah.
that he wears for the podcasting. So
And then Chuck is chiming in. Good morning, and dapper looking this morning. Nice.
yes, as we
Bringing our
should be.
A game.
Right. Bringing the A game, if you will. So, cool episode, folks. We are going to be talking. I'm pretty jazzed up. I'm not going to lie. We're probably going to be pushing this one into a couple episodes. And when I say probably, we are. We are going to be pushing today's conversation into a couple episodes. And the thing is, it's actually going to be split up because we do have a guest next week.
That's right.
We'll be talking with one of the individuals, the marketing team from Kyle from Tech Tire, which is a tire repair and balancing business. They are located here in Ohio. You can actually see a video with me at SEMA interviewing them. We've been using their products for years at this point, and they are one of the industry's foremost leading how tires work experts, right? So outside the manufacturers, then we have to repair, balance, and talk about maintaining tires.
Make the tire work.
Make the tire work, and
Yeah.
that's Tech Tire,
Yep.
right?
And then just to catch up on comments, Amy is saying good morning, guys. And
Morning, honey.
Good morning.
Daddy Jeep is saying that is a sharp-looking flannel, Scott.
It is, right? It is. So we'll be talking with them, but today we will be talking about antique XJs.
Yes. He said that.
I said it. Antique XJs.
I might have pulled the commercial for that so we can listen
I
to the
can't
original
wait.
commercial.
So you're going to want to hear that here very soon. And we're going to be specifically talking about the dumpsters that we all know and love, the square body, smaller, compact 4-door and 2-door applications released in 1984.
Yep.
So if you are an 84 model or older, I want you to know that by Pennsylvania standards, it's actually newer than that even.
Yep.
By Pennsylvania
Quite
standards,
a bit, actually.
you can be considered an antique. So
Yes.
let that sink in.
Basically,
Yes.
I think if you're an 80s baby period, at this point, you're antique and
100%.
In
And
Pennsylvania.
it's coming for you, you 90s babies.
That's right.
And I was going to say, it really might even be
It's
the
almost
mid-90s.
out of the 90s babies, honestly.
Yes. Yes. So we'll be talking about that today. You're not going to want to miss that. And then in hashtag not sponsored, we have a very cool product, albeit higher on the price point for a lot of people, but it doesn't stop us from doing a bunch of installations. There's a lot of people out there who see the value. And so because we have done so many of these installations over the years, we make sure we want to spend some time talking about a Alpine specific head unit that we're doing. And Jeff has become one of our foremost experts on, so we'll definitely have some good detailed information on that. And that's specifically a retrofit product for your JK customers.
And then Daddy Jeep just chimed in. All YJs are antique in PA.
They are.
They are.
They are.
And that if you're unfamiliar, a Jeep YJ Wrangler was the first production run of Wranglers, and that was 87 to 95. So when he says all Jeep YJs are antiques, he is correct.
Yep.
So that's what's spurring us with our antique XJs. It's a classification or insignia that Pennsylvania offers. And so that is what we'll be talking about. But prior to that, we should touch base and see how we're doing. Again, I Speak Jeep is about the Jeep lifestyle. So not only is there off-roading and flexing our Jeeps, which I did see Daddy Jeep was out playing and
I did too.
doing
Yeah,
his
It's a little
RTI.
jelly.
Yeah.
I was equally jelly.
He was flexing out that YJ for sure.
Why don't we have an RTI thing yet?
That's a great question.
We can weld. We have steel. We park on things.
Get on it in your spare time, Scott.
Yeah,
I
in
think
your
it's a
spare time.
great project
A
for Jeff to
great
learn how to
project
weld
for
on.
Listen,
Listen, do we want people to be able to park their Jeeps on
Well,
it?
we'll let you do it first.
Oh, okay. And then you'll reinforce it.
Nice. Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, because that's a liability at that point.
Yes.
Good morning,
Um,
Joe. And he says, good morning, and ladies, men.
Oh, hey-oh.
So, okay.
So because we're looking dapper, you know.
I guess.
As far as the Jeep lifestyle, it is about the DIY market, and so whether that's you DIYing on your Jeep, or even just that rugged individualism that comes with the brand, that sometimes allows us to over optimistically think that we are more qualified than we really are to
Yes.
do things. And the learning curve that is the journey from point A to Z.
Mhm.
And so ultimately with us, while we have done some gnarly stuff with Jeeps, a lot of our DIY stuff is third party at this
Well,
point.
it's expanded.
It has expanded
Yes.
into further things that we shouldn't be doing, and yet here we are.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
s-
I think Jeff worked on his camper some this weekend.
I did a lot of work on the camper this weekend.
Are we down to a frame
I
yet?
love that he's calling it a camper, because it's not a camper anymore.
No.
It's just
It's a
flat
floor.
deck. It's a floor. On a
Well,
trailer.
part of a floor. The floor, I can tell you that is missing in sections and is falling through in other sections. Ask me how I know.
Meh.
But
Not out the hard way, huh?
so it is completely stripped down to just the deck at this point and the remnants of the deck. I was able to get the entire bathroom setup off of it. That was the major remaining piece, and the electrical. So that's all out. I'm happy to report that I am able to save the electrical panel.
Oh,
So that's nice.
outstanding.
I don't have to buy the converters and all that anymore
Yep.
At this moment.
at this moment. It all,
we don't know anything about that, do
Oh
we?
my God!
Mm.
There's
And-
so many things.
and
Yes.
I mean, I didn't save any of the wiring, so
Oh, I was.
Mm-hmm.
I knew better with that.
Uh-huh.
But as far as
So many
the-
things I was going to save and save
Oh.
money on when
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, oh yeah, I'm just going to keep this.
Mhm.
And then when I'm putting everything back together, I'm like,
you know,
that's a little dingy.
So I did that with the vents. I was like, I'm going to save the vents, and I was careful to take them apart safely. And then I was looking at them like, I'm not saving the vents, so they're in the scrap pile. But I am going to clean up the shower, the toilet and the sink and save those because
At this moment.
no.
And people who
I-
are joining us who maybe
I'm
are not
committed on
familiar,
this.
this was like a 68-foot long bumper pole,
Yes.
crappy
Wasn't
old
it like
80s
72
trailer.
foot long?
72 foot long. It was
it was an old Dutchman coach,
a Dutchman coach.
a 36 footer
Okay.
with a double tip out, and
Slide outs.
it's called a tip out.
Oh, okay.
I think they're. I mean, so the problem is
It's a slide out. Yes, it's a slide out. But
It's what we
called
call a slide out, but because this thing was so
Old.
freaking old when he started, like that when it was made, it was
Yes.
made with a product called a tip out, and honestly, we saw the tip out technology, and somehow they are different, conceptualized the same, but the tip
Okay.
out is different,
Yep.
and
so that section is about 13 feet in itself.
okay,
The whole trailer was a 36 footer, and I am committed to removing the tip out section. That's going to leave, with actual trailer livable space, roughly 20 feet. So that's the goal.
so there you go, folks. If you are unfamiliar with what this project was, at Jeffrey and his heavy half-ton pick 'em up truck hauling in this super long Dutchman coach, wicked old trailer. Now the good news is a camper trailer at that time having some form of a tip out or something, that frame will be a little heavier than
Yes.
than other trailers of that time frame.
So I'm being told to read Joe's comment again. Apparently, it's good that Colleen's brain is working today, and mine's apparently not. I need more coffee. It says, "Good, gentle morning, and ladies' men."
Ah.
Oh.
So, and then Joe continues to say,
And it's almost Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Appropriate,
It
Joe.
is.
"It is." And then Joe also said, "Old Houlihan and Big Chuck show greeting. I'm old."
It is that from the late night on Cleveland TV.
And then Colleen again says, "Not that you guys aren't looking good in your flannels."
We try. We try. Folks, if you're listening in and you're joining us in your ear holes flying across the country, we encourage you to join us live or catch the episodes on our YouTube channel or jump over to our Patreon. You can see our smiling faces there as well.
All right. So
No, I'm not done yet, man. I'm not done on your trailer. You're like your brain's off, but
Yeah.
I'm not done on your
Okay.
trailer.
Where are we going with it now?
I'm trying to make sure that people who are joining us recently are familiar with what are you trying to do with your heavy half-ton and your camper project succinctly.
So succinctly, I am making it so that we can travel. Kristen's family is across the country. My wife's family is across the country, so we travel to visit them, and we don't want to pay for hotels, and I really don't want to keep sleeping in a tent. So we came across this project. It was listed for $600 on Marketplace. I scored it for significantly less than that.
As you should.
As I should, because there was nothing really left
That's-
salvageable.
You've torn. It's a $600 frame at this point, and you bought a dream.
And the
Yes.
Jeffrey bought a dream.
but the frame is in really good shape, and the goal, and I know that Scott doesn't believe me, but the goal is to build it for $4,000 or less.
I
And
remember when I had those dreams.
oh man, I was
So-
that unrealistic too.
Yes, I was.
I legitimately sat down and started pricing stuff out
Uh-huh.
over the weekend, besides stripping it all the way down to the bare frame, because
Mhm.
her unrealistic goal of having it ready by May, I said, all right, well, if we're going to do this, I need to start pricing this out and see how close I am actually going to be to my $4,000 budget.
Yes.
Mhm.
I can succinctly tell you that with complete frame and siding, I am at about $2,500 to $3,000.
I
So
remember when I didn't charge anything for my time too.
I know.
I'm-
That's valuable as well. And Jeffrey's not doing that
I'm
right
not.
now.
I don't care about
What
the
about
time
tools?
because
Do you have a tool budget for extra tools you need?
I have all the tools.
Oh, okay.
Folks, I think
His
it's
confidence.
valuable. We need to hold Jeffrey accountable
Yes.
because listening and viewers alike, I think we need to see Jeffrey's budget by budget. I would like him to have a weekly update of
Yes.
where he's at in
In
his
his budget.
$4,000 budget,
So we can see when it happens.
so we can see when it happens, and so ultimately, we're gonna hold him accountable, and we're gonna continue to ask him for updates and an itemized price list
Yeah.
as he continues to move forward.
Yeah.
I want make sure that our viewers and listeners are on board.
So
and he's very confident. So let's.
I'm very confident because that price also included all the lighting for the exterior of the trailer as well. So
I can't wait.
Yes.
we'll see. A lot of it's going to depend on how your
And
motto of
here's-
purchasing up
this is the
front.
butt.
Yep.
The butt's coming right
Nope.
now.
No.
I'm still confident. That's if I have to go to Menards and spend it through Menards.
Okay.
I'm going to try to source the metal for a lower price.
Okay.
But
Does
as of
Lowe's
right
know
now,
you're
We
gonna-
make money and we save money when we buy, is what Jeffrey's
right,
saying. And
correct.
so he needs to be a creative, purchaser. Is what
Does
it's coming
Lowe's
down
know
to.
you're going to cheat on them? Because that might change.
I don't. I tried
Lowe's?
really hard to go through Lowe's. They do not sell aluminum siding,
Ouch.
and they don't sell corrugated
We
aluminum.
see you, Lowe's.
So I've got no hope of going to Lowe's. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll have to deal with Home Depot. They don't either.
Oh my.
They don't either.
Nope.
You can get you can get all the trim work, the fascia, but you cannot get siding or corrugated sheet aluminum.
There's too many variations. They just want to sell the trim work.
Correct.
I'm with you.
Huh.
I got a guy. I'll hook you up.
Sounds
I
great.
got a guy.
See, I'm going to be able to do this under that
See,
budget.
network.
Let's
Network.
catch up on comments real quick. Chip is saying good morning.
Morning, Chip.
Ryan is saying bought the dream. Been there, done that.
Yeah, we all have, man.
And Chuck is saying, I'm glad you guys work on my Jeep. I cut the explicitives out of myself changing a explicitive van headlight yesterday.
Oh no.
Yes.
And literally he used like the old Tasmanian devil for the explicitives.
As he should.
Yes.
Perfect. Colleen's asking Menards, and Joe is saying it'll be more than 4K if you want heater, AC, stand-up shower, hot water heater. Sounds like a build series. I'm not going to make a series out of it, but
Joe, I
again-
think he should. Joe,
Yes.
there was a waiver in his confidence. He said he's
Yes.
not going to make a build
I
series out of it.
will confidently bring in the budget as I spend money, and I will show that and share that. But as far as doing an actual video series at my house, no, I can't trust my kids enough to be able to produce
just a couple
build
pictures on
series.
your Instagram.
Couple pictures on your Insta, your Facebook, and
can
an
probably do
itemized
that.
build list. And here's the last
I
piece.
just realized this weekend that you can send messages on Instagram, and that you've been sending me messages on Instagram.
Wow, Jeff.
Jeff.
Welcome to 2023, Jeff.
Krista goes, oh, I should check my Instagram. I have some messages from friends. I'm like, messages on Instagram? She's like,
Oh, Jeffrey.
do you ever log into your Instagram? I'm like, no, I don't.
Oh, Jeffrey.
So
all right. Well,
I learned a new trick.
gotta get-
I pulled up mine, and I go, oh, there's like 3 messages from Neil.
Oh, you got to get hip with the kids, Jeffrey. You got to get hip with the
Man.
kids, man. It's actually one of the primary ways. Jason, who's the owner of the Angry Turtle, though he keeps every time we're together, he's like, "Hey, do you think I could trade that thing in? Do you think I can get a new Gladiator?" He's on the build site, trying to build out a new Gladiator.
He's looking for a dream, purchasing a dream.
He's trying to purchase a dream. But yeah, that's one of our primary ways because he's sworn off the Book of Faces and other drama laden social sites.
Yep.
And just kind of stays out of the conversation, just looks at pictures on Insta. So
A few more comments have come in too. Daddy Jeep is saying flatted aluminum sheets for race cars could be an option, and I actually have talked about that. Talked about it with Scott just this weekend, as a matter of fact.
mhm.
So that is a consideration. And then Kevin is saying we need more crawler hauler content. So
Yeah.
Mm.
And,
gotta
and
work
the
on that.
piece just so ultimately I don't know that's going to be a true crawler hauler as far as yours. Yours was going to have some open deck for kid
kayaks
stuff and,
and
for
bikes.
recreational stuff. And the thing is, I love recreational vehicles in all capacities, and I personally own vintage truck campers. I've owned motorhomes. I've owned tow behinds. The whole shooting match. And I've always liked the idea of budget building exactly what you're doing. So hopefully I have some parts and pieces that might help in the process as well.
Well, and then that's the other benefit is that my parents also have a ton of metal that they were going to take to recycling, and I said, hold on, let me come look at it. So next weekend I'm going to go out to their house for my mom's birthday anyways, and I'm going to take a look in their basement, see what they got that I can reuse. And so that's going to help out a
This
little
is
bit.
going to look like a little house, like a little log cabin.
hope
think.
so.
I think it is.
It probably is because it's me.
Because it's you.
But as
It's
far
gonna
as
be blue.
if I can find blue
If you can
aluminum,
find blue
We
metal.
make spray paint.
Oh, ugh.
yeah, I'd rather.
All right, we got to move on. We got to move. We were supposed to be succinct. I will keep mine brief, and I'm going to get those pictures on Patreon today for our supporters there, where they're going to get to see my secret tiny house storage unit.
If you haven't gone to Patreon yet, go check it out. You can subscribe to 3 different tier levels. The top 2, obviously, you're going to have more benefits in. You can get into our Discord community app, and I'll tell you what, that was on fire over the weekend with a lot of different comments, a lot of different conversations
you can see
going.
Jeff go to Lowe's.
You see Jeff go to Lowe's, but better yet, I'm going to say, and then Joe Brill has been commenting. I take it. I love the fact that because Joe would really be giddy on the fact that Chuck is trying to buy tanks.
Oh, I love it.
And I'm here to store tanks, and
Yeah.
I honestly thought of Joe in that moment.
If you want to know how to store your junk, get on Patreon. we have
Exactly.
inside knowledge.
There's inside knowledge.
It was great because I shared it with Kristen. I said, I volunteered us to store a tank in our backyard. She was like, why do we need a tank in our backyard? I said, why not?
Why should it?
Why
And she
should
goes,
we?
she goes, you're going to have to knock down the fence to get it in the backyard. I said, I don't care. I'll fix the fence.
It's a tank.
That's a Patreon conversation, folks. My own personal build on the house. A normal or sane human being would have used faux beams, especially in the sense that they're not structural. That is just, again, this idea of you fabricobbling that piece of metal under the cowl where nobody would ever see
Totally.
it because you needed to know that it was there.
Yep.
I need to know that I have real, solid, grown from Ohio wood, milled down by a local, red-blooded American in Ohio or Ohioan, and stained here in the shop and shoved up into my house. So we attempted this. I promise you. Thrice times. On the third time, we were finally successful. We were far more successful with putting the first beam in.
Oh, geez.
Usually goes the other way.
Yeah. So the second beam, and I kid you not, at one point in time, in a pure manner of exhaustion, I had it precariously balanced and kind of jimmied on a cut piece of 2x6, and about 10 feet in the air, and it did go tumbling down.
Oh, no.
So it was
Did
a
it put a
near
hole in the
miss.
floor?
Nope, everything's solid, right? It
Well, that's
Oh,
big.
yeah.
the floor, it hammered the wall.
Well, we know your king studs are 9 inches wide. How
Thick as the
doubled up
floor.
are your joists on the floor?
The joists are sufficiently strong. I will just simply say
Doesn't
that
need to reinforce
So
them.
he's using 2x12s side by side,
we have 1 inch thick plywood and
5-inch on center spacing.
I intend to put another another half inch, so we will have an inch and a half of a subfloor in the house
No
when
squeaks.
all said and done.
No, you're gonna have all
Um,
the squeaks because of that. There's
No,
so
we're
much movement.
I'm gonna glue the heck out of everything. So big shout out to Jason for helping me and surviving the beam crash.
Beam crash of 2023.
Beam crash of 2023.
Joe is chiming in saying, Linda won't let me have a real tank. Something about terrorizing the Amish neighbors.
Yeah, Joe, that's what I'm saying. We're willing to be your proxy,
Yes.
right? And if anybody would like to buy a tank, we are willing to store that for you. Just so that is perfectly
we'll
clear and on the
consider,
table.
We'll consider branching into tank restoration.
No, not in
Oh,
this
boy.
time frame.
Not in this
So-
time frame, but
So I'm going to give my wife a shout out for her DIY nature, and she's real proud of herself because tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and it happens to fall on a Tuesday. And my wife, as a bona fide foodie, heard that my son needed a Valentine's box. That there was going to be a level of competition. Now, other families are typically like making the child like glue little like stupid little stickers on their box and whatnot. My wife decided to go full hog and make a let's talk about love Valentine box.
is it in the shape of a taco?
There's actually a full-fledged taco on top of this box. It's about 12, 14. I'll make sure that goes on the Patreon as well. And you set the Valentine down through the fixins, and there's little tomatoes and lettuce and the taco V's up at the top. And then
the crafty wives.
and then then my son is in charge of putting all like the puns on, puns and little extra ingredients on the outside of the box and whatnot. She did send me pictures, but for our listeners, I wanted to make sure that we weren't just showing pictures, that we were making sure to describe what we have. So we're going to put that picture on our Patreon with the Taco Tuesday Valentine's. Yeah, she was inspired by this dozen of tacos, and so not that she watches our podcast ever, so it doesn't matter, but that's my intention, not to get her flowers tomorrow, but to get her a dozen tacos.
There you go. Joe just said if he wins the lottery and finds himself with a nice, easy 8 Sherman, He's going to make a deal with Dale at SOR and store it there. No, Joe, bring it here.
Yeah.
We will store it here.
Yeah.
All right, and you were still banging away on metal.
I think I will be for a while, but it is what it is. So I decided to go full head into vintage heater restoration. So I tore it all apart.
You're really trying to reuse the smog-induced vapor. Okay.
No. This is 40s technology. This is where we discovered that the block had heat creating material in it.
Had heat technology in the
Yes.
fluids.
And we could just pump that fluid through a smaller radiator.
Do you remember some of the heaters I had in the beginning of the in the early years of the
Yes.
business?
Yes.
Ah, man, they were so cool.
And actually, this is I'm gonna screw this up, but the company brand that made this heater also made ones that caught your drapes on fire in your period correct house.
Nice.
But-
That's excellent. It's definitely what you should install in your car that you've invested your life in.
Yes. So I tore it completely apart, and I tested the heater core in my kitchen sink / tub
Yes.
in my house because I have a great wife and lets me do stupid things in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I also polished out the little nameplate for it sitting in my easy chair, and then used model paint to paint the letters back
The lettering back onto it.
in. I put up a thing. If you're on my Instagram, you saw it, asking what should I do for color, and everybody unanimously said make it color coordinated with the car. So I went with a dark silver metallic on the body, and I went with blue trim,
Mm-hmm.
and there will be some more updates for that coming up.
I just love I love the lines and the bodies of those heaters.
Mhm.
You know,
It'd make a really good speaker.
they would,
spot.
and that's exactly what I used to think. If you're unfamiliar and watching or listening, again, cars didn't have heaters like we know them
No.
to be at
They
that
were an
at that time.
accessory.
They were an accessory, and even still. Basically, we were working on ambient vent drafts, right? So pulling exhaust fumes or the heated air off the engine and venting it into the cabin of, whatever vehicle. So then later on, or if you wanted a more heat source, you
Mhm.
could add these accessory coolers and heaters to your application, and basically you plumbed it out. It was this really cool unit, the size of a shoebox or smaller. And of course, they were built in the 20s to the 50s. So they had beautiful metalwork
Art
lines.
Deco.
They were Art Deco.
Yep.
Absolutely. The stuff that just
Stainless.
is iconic American
And
iron.
actually excited the Instagram base, and I actually got some pictures tagged into other heater restorations that others have done.
And honestly, a lot like our retro microphones that we now have in studio, they have a similar body shape oftentimes with
Yep.
these heaters.
And this one is round, which is a little different. Or most of the time they're square,
Mhm.
so it fits me perfect. It's a little different.
It's a little odd.
I got it from a mutual good friend of ours
Mhm.
that has a really cool Model A hot rod. So it was really cool for that tie-in as well. But anyway, I got that all pretty much. I put the final coat of paint on it this morning. I guess got to decide if I'm leaving it the matte look it has or putting clear on it. And otherwise, it's ready for reassembly. And then I got to try to fix the heater core. So, yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. And it needs a new electric motor.
All right. Well, it is.
Well, before we move into the XJ conversation,
Yes.
Super Bowl was this weekend.
Okay.
Jeep released a couple really cool commercials, Chrysler in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that we bring that to attention. And number one and foremost, I'm mad at Jeep because I didn't get paid for that commercial for Ram. I'm mad at Chrysler.
Stellantis.
Stellantis.
Big Mama Stellantis.
Stellantis, because they totally stole our stiff door syndrome commercial.
Premature electrification.
Yes.
Yes.
Great
Yeah.
commercial. It really was.
And let's, as much as Jeffrey, I love your commercial. Really, we have a mutual acquaintance, As He Design Works, and one of his most viral Jeep specific products was shift linkage, and it was of similar nature.
I
You know
know.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, man, that kind of stuff works. Your writing of our stiff door syndrome is spectacular and hysterical. But let's say American culture loves it when men can't get it up. So let's just, for whatever reason, we find that incredibly funny.
Yes.
So, or entertainment value. Period.
Correct.
Yeah. So good job, Mama Stellantis on videos. I am always looking forward. She's set a precedent now for a decade as far as the videos that the commercials that they offer during the Super Bowl.
And they were listed as one of the major sponsors for Super Bowl this year as well.
Sure.
Joe was chiming in saying the goat in the Jeep ad had us laughing. Nice dig at Ford.
Love it. That's interesting perspective, Joe.
I honestly didn't catch that originally.
A lot of people really applauded Jeep and the simplicity of their Super Bowl ad. Just animals and Jeeps. And
it was similar to last year's, honestly, but I really liked it. It was clean. It was appropriate.
But the interesting thing, and what that reference is, listening in, is that the new Broncos have a GOAT mode. Which is intentionally meant to be a flex on greatest of all time off-roading mode. Their GOAT mode in the Bronco. So interesting to see that the GOAT was riding in the Jeep and whatnot.
Well, at the end, the GOAT walked through and they stopped playing the electric slide, and the GOAT stopped and gave a little bleat at them to say, "Hey, put that song back on." They cranked the song back on, and the GOAT happily dances away.
Interesting.
So it was a nice little fun play at the end.
Interesting. We'll have to, maybe we'll tag that in somewhere in the video or something later, or comments or something like that. That's kind of fun. Interesting. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so if you're, considering your significant other, or your Jeep is your significant other, think about a good investment there.
Yep.
Choose wisely, and or if your significant other doesn't like Jeep parts, don't buy Jeep parts this time around.
I get in trouble all the time. So
yeah,
maybe
and the
do
Valentine's Day gift to your wife cannot be, "Hey, I didn't spend money on Jeep parts." That's your gift. No.
Yep. Yep. This is that moment. Unless your Jeep is your Valentine, then spend away.
Well, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Antique XJs.
Yeah.
Should we start it off with the commercial?
Do the commercial, man.
All right. Here's the commercial.
Bronco 2 never made it. S10 Blazer 4x4 never made it. No four-wheeler ever made it. Until the new Jeep Cherokee Sport Wagon became the first to win all 3 4x4 of the Year awards. And Jeep Cherokee has more horsepower per pound than Blazer, and higher mileage than both. And only Cherokee has a choice of 2 or 4 doors and room for 5. Get triple award-winning Cherokee performance or the luxury of the new Wagoneer, only in a Jeep.
Okay, so that was the commercial.
Perfect.
On our end, we missed the first half of it because I had it on output only. My bad.
That's all right.
So
for shame.
So
Classic.
the way it started off though was an immediate dig at Bronco. It started off just making fun of Broncos.
Bronco 2s,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
just a classic marketing, which I just loved. And you and I shared a couple marketing. You actually found something from the 70s on the Cherokee, which was even better.
Oh, it was such a just look up the original Cherokee commercial.
Oh, it was absolutely spectacular. That was a 1975 commercial, and then this is the 84 commercial, which of course they're directly digging at the Bronco 2
And
the Blazer.
The Blazer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about antique XJs, and we are going to make it into a couple-part series because arguably Scott and I have owned a couple XJs in our life. Jeffrey was a grand. He was a snob.
Yeah.
He came from a professional environment.
Yes.
Well, listen, I didn't personally own, but I helped Rhino Line, one of the first XJs to have a full Rhino line on the outside. I'm just putting it out there.
Oh, you're a
flexing.
trendsetter.
Yep.
He's a flex again.
It was my cousin.
Flex again.
My cousin's XJ. The paint was wearing off.
No,
and
it never happened.
Neither of us wanted to do body work, so we went, "Hey, we got this. We can get this Rhino liner," and just painted the whole thing in it.
Just hammer away.
Then we just let people write on it with chalk whenever we were out doing different things. It was great.
Oh,
it
my goodness.
was one of the first XJs with Rhino line.
So we're going to set the stage for the Cherokee dumpster. And if you're unfamiliar with that joke,
I need to get us caught up on these comments because there's, first of all, Joe Harper, my significant other bought a Bronco this weekend. There may be no flowers. Chuck says Bronco owners seem to have a strong inferiority complex. They just never shut up.
Oh my.
Bronco 2, bahaha from Chuck. And then Linda is saying, I'd be more than happy if Joe Brilla gave me Jeep parts.
Exactly.
And Joe says, back to your cubbyhole, woman. Joe, tomorrow's Valentine's Day.
Joe, that's not how we get tanks.
No.
We want tanks. We need to sidestep these things. All right. So if you're not familiar with the joke, folks, XJs are commonly,
Square.
Well, they're square, and people, just commonly refer to them as like a trash dumpster,
Yes.
like the actual green, waste management type dumpster, commercial unit, or brown, depending on where you live. And so there's just a nice online running joke about that, and they have their own culture at this point.
They do.
They have their own culture, and to set the stage, it was a platform that ran just shy of 20 years. So the square body 4 and 2-door XJ platform that ran just shy of 20 years. It was a great 4-wheel drive system. It was arguably what ushered in Jeep's ability to say, hey, we should make the JK, of this 4-door option relevant.
So Joe Harper has responded with the more common vernacular of what it's called currently, but I'm not going to repeat that for censorship reasons.
Yep. You're going to have to go to the comments and find that one, folks.
So I thought it would be kind of cool just being me, and we talk a little bit about the concept of the XJ, where it came from and how it became.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the true dark days
Yes.
of the early 80s.
Yep.
And what at that point in time AMC is doing.
Yes.
Because
So AMC is broke.
was that anything new with AMC?
Well, it was the darkest days.
They were running low. They were running low.
And where XJ actually came from was 2 concept vehicles that were actually made during Kaiser era. They were little like sporty cars that had 4-wheel drive. There were the later one was actually built on a Jeepster chassis.
Okay.
About 1969, and so there was an XJ1 and XJ2. So that's where that 2-letter destination came from. Ironically, the XJ was trying to be more European compared to other things that AMC was producing. And at that time, they were flirting with Renault, which is a French company, and saying, please give us money.
You have to say Renault, right? With the pinky out, Renault, with my handlebar mustache.
I'm
And
going to give him this. That accent was one of his better accents.
Oh, victory!
this is why he's going to say that name.
And now someone from France is going to get on and be like, no, that was a
Yeah,
terrible
Francois.
accent. Why would you make fun of us like
Francois.
that?
I know. I'm an equal opportunity offender.
Yes.
This is what it is. I'm not.
So ironically, if you research this history, and you do on the American side, they'll say Richard Teague was the father of the Cherokee.
Okay.
If you read the
XJ
French
Cherokee.
version,
Okay.
there's
This
that
is the
name.
name.
You brought a book
I
of
did.
information today.
Well, the XJ deserves a book.
yes,
Francois Castanin.
yes, which was
Castine.
because
Castine.
Renault was putting so
see
much
that.
money.
Castine.
let me see.
No.
that. Everyone thinks my
Francois?
last name is French anyway, so let me see.
No,
it now.
I'm not giving it to you.
Okay.
Anyway.
They literally took it away from me.
We did.
And
We
hid
did.
it.
We took it
and
away.
hid it. They buried it in the stack of papers that
so,
Scott. He
because-
wasted all your printer paper today.
No, I did. You did it first.
I printed my usual documents.
Anyway, Renault decided if they were going to put as much money as they were going to, that they were going to put one of their figureheads in the company, and that was him. And he, I don't have an exact correlation with this, but I'm putting 2 and 2 together. I found this quote, and I really think it's interesting. I think you'll enjoy it. The story I was told is the exec in charge of the design of the Cherokee hated the 4.2 AMC inline 6, specifically designed the Cherokee so it would not fit.
Huh.
And for those that don't know,
Who said that?
even Boherg,
Evan.
whatever.
Evan.
Anyway,
The guy's name is Evan. Scott. God, I love you, man.
Scott watched a lot of Disney as a kid, I think. Even Stevens.
Even
Anyway.
Boherg, AMC.
For those that don't-
AMC engineer. Okay.
for those that don't know, from 84 to 86, you could not get a Jeep Cherokee with a 4.0
No, you could
or a
not.
258 straight 6.
Correct. There was no straight 6.
Nope.
Right? There was no
We-
straight 6 in them. You got a V6.
Yep.
You got a garbage GM 2.8 V6.
Yep.
Which we'll talk about here in a hot second. Or you got the 2.5 Iron Duke, also GM.
AMC. It wasn't the Iron Duke. Yes.
So the
Yeah.
Iron Duke is being produced in CJ7s at that same
Correct.
time. We have the GM Iron Duke running into CJ7.
I mentioned they were broke.
Oh my goodness.
So
Oh my goodness.
if you read the French literature, what they say is the guy, I can't pronounce his name.
Francois.
Francois.
Joe's saying he's got a bounce, but here in North Carolina, the vehicle needs to be 30 years old to be an antique.
Oh.
I hate to say it, Joe, but we're there.
We're still there, man. We're still there, Joe.
Anyway,
Have a great day, Joe. Enjoy your meetings, man. Thanks for joining us.
Francois is pillared for figuring out how to make the vehicle thrifty for using other parts, which I will say from American standpoint, they were doing that before that.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
They also went on to say that Chrysler, after the merger, decided that was such a good idea that they did it themselves, which we will see and agree.
Agreed. So we're going to paint the picture, and just so you are all aware, we are going to make sure that this stretches into a couple sessions. The XJ, the Antique XJ, realistically runs all the way, through the 90s. So
Yes.
it's not like we're just going to talk about the 80s. We're going to talk all the way to the production run of 2001,
Yep.
and we're going to split it into the older models and the newer models. So right now, the older models and the history that surrounds that, and then the newer models and the history surrounds that. The outside reasonably goes unchanged for
the most part.
decade and a half. But the internals are really interesting and cool. And I'd like to just talk for a brief moment about what is happening globally at that time. So, realistically, we had this huge push as auto manufacturers. It was all about partnerships and acquisitions, right? At this point in time, when Big Mama Stellantis makes an acquisition or talks to somebody, the whole world kind of gets up in arms. In the 40s, I guess the 20s through the 60s, that was an everyday occurrence. They were just walking across the street in Detroit, going into a new startup plant, or this engineer from this plant was allowed to go into this garage, and he started
he quit
a new,
and went over.
he quit and he went over here and he took the design with him, or this company wanted to brand under a different namesake, so they went down the street. Same company, same engineers, different names. That kind of stuff was all happening. We had the release of these big-bodied, the Wagoneers, the J trucks,
full-size Cherokees,
full-size vehicles, and whatnot. And what happens in the 70s? But the fuel crisis.
Yep.
And
then the late 70s, early 80s, we're still reeling from that.
We're reeling, and this goes to I'll often talk about in the leadership of business, commercialism, consumerism, whatever, and the other podcast that Jeff and I are working on. We're always operating within a ripple effect of the decade or two prior, right? And so exactly what you said, by the fuel crisis of the 70s, we're still sorting stuff out by the 80s, and we're going, hey, we need more of a compact four-wheel drive vehicle.
Which, ironically, they had been doing smaller things over in the European side way before us.
Correct.
When we were still in big, giant Fleetwoods and big blocks.
Right, and they had downsized. I mean, arguably, their engineering is always a little more downsized than
a
ours.
lot of their cityscapes are so tight that you can't put a Fleetwood down.
Right. That Cadillac Fleetwood that I love so much. But
yes.
So a fuel crisis. So now we're looking, and at this point in time, AMC is broke, which they spend most of their existence as an auto manufacturer broke.
Yes.
And behind the eight ball. And they partner with this Italian manufacturer, Renault, who equally, in my opinion, and this is, I'm equal opportunity offender, they're like the same caliber of European manufacturer. They're broke and behind the eight ball. I see you, Renault, and I don't think that highly of you. So
he
was
touched by some of your parts.
I was touched by you years ago.
He had a
And
YJ. Enough said.
I had a YJ.
Oh.
I had an 87 YJ.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this vehicle, the XJ that's released in '84, it shares the exterior body shape and dimension that is loved and appreciated all the way through 2001.
Yep.
And-
Ironically, Renault buys up enough stock in 1983 to have controlling
authority.
of AMC.
Yes.
So right before this is released, basically that happens.
Right.
The other important note to why I feel like the nails are getting put in the coffin is the American government was not comfortable with AMC being controlled by a French company and making their military contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So AM General, which made the Hummer and or the Humvee, I guess I should actually say
the Humvee because those guys who
gonna get
operated
upset.
them, big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference, Hummer people.
And mail trucks and those kind of things was made under AM General. So that got separated, and that was their guaranteed cash. Like
Yes.
basically, you're going to get paid for that job if you get it done.
Yes.
So that was
So
foolish as hell.
Real quick, Dale's chiming in saying, "Good morning, guys. Bummer I missed the first part. Dale, it'll be available on Facebook for the next 24 hours, or on Wednesday it'll go live on the streaming platform, so you can always listen to it later."
Absolutely. Yep. Join us there. And that's what's really cool is where we see the Humvee, the military contract, right? Because they are distant relatives.
They're
as far
cousins.
Yes, because AMC is now controlled by a French authority, by an international authority. And
Yep.
so the U.S. government goes, hey, wait a second. We can't have we need to have a domestic production
Yep.
and controlling authority. And
Chuck's bringing us full circle back in the conversation. French tanks only go in reverse. Little known fact. And just for Chuck, I wonder what the girth of those tanks are.
always.
Oui.
And again, if anybody would like to sponsor a tank at the SFJ location,
Yes,
we're here for it. We're here for it.
Even a French one.
Joe says 1 forward gear, 6 in reverse.
So,
Can't make that up.
so here's the thing. So we have the XJ is released in 1984, and it has again this garbage 2.8 V6, and
Which ironically, I sent Jeff the ads. Got better fuel economy than the Blazer that had the same motor in it.
no,
Yeah. Only a mile per gallon, but still.
no,
Yes.
All right, so if you're familiar, and it's interesting, there was though a manufacturing tolerance or something different because you cannot take that engine out of the Blazer and put it right into.
Well, I know. I bet you there's some people that did.
There are. I guarantee it, right? Because you and I know the American ingenuity knows no limits, right?
Yes.
Which I love. But there's something that AMC did specific to that motor with a bell housing pattern.
Nope.
No, because it was a GM transmission. There's something about that engine that you can't put a 4.3 in there.
Well, correct, because it's a 60-degree V6 and a 4.3 is a 90-degree V6.
Okay.
So, real quick, Chuck just said small in girth and length and smells of snails. Now, because
We're
last
talking about the tank, folks. Chuck is making a reference about the tank.
now because of last week, Scott threw in a little Easter egg. I'm going to throw in another one. I'm surprised it doesn't smell of elderberries.
Yes.
So, you know what? That's right, because I could not put a 4.3 in a 2.8 S10 Blazer either.
Correct.
That's what the difference is. You're right.
Yes.
So the 60 degree and the 90 degree
Correct.
Is the difference in the bell housing pattern itself. 2.8s
Yep.
and 4.3s, despite being manufactured both by GM and using GM transmissions,
Yep.
were not interchangeable to each other.
Correct.
That's what it was.
Yep.
So we had this paltry 2.8 V6, which made, I don't know, 90 hot horsepower.
Yeah.
Uh,
Something.
Which, did we see that ad about duck power? Did we talk about the duck power?
I don't know if we talked about it. I saw it.
I
It
did
was
not see that
hysterical.
one.
They
We'll make
translated over to duck
They
power.
translated over to duck power. It's
Sounds
like
much better.
1,800 duck power per
Yes.
one horse.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in the future because I stinking love it, and I think I want to use everything by duck power here.
So for those that are listening, you're going to want to go check out our Facebook page for the comments because
It's off the chain at this point.
There's a whole conversation about tanks and the history on tanks at this point, and German Panthers are coming up. Colleen is saying off topic, but I drove an AMC Eagle wagon many moons ago.
Yes.
Which-
and I really feel like that's the granddaddy of the XJ.
I agree. Right.
If you squint at an Eagle wagon,
That you and I arguably I always look at an Eagle wagon and think I want one of those.
I'd say 90% of people who start out with an XJ have a big affection for an Eagle.
I think so.
Yep.
So that platform, the Antique XJ of the 84 to 86, it only runs to 86.
Yep.
Right.
And then in 87, they were like, this 2.8 ain't getting it done.
This is not getting it done.
And the 4-cylinder, nobody's buying.
Now, 87 is officially when Big Daddy Chrysler
Yep.
comes in.
Oh, and I got another thing that's gonna blow your mind. So Renault chairman Georgie Bessy was assassinated by communist terror group November of 1986, and they decided as a company to retract from their global exploits.
Wow! Look
And
what's
then-
going on in the world, the international
Yep.
markets that's
And then-
affecting vehicle production.
AMC was sold to Chrysler for $1.7 billion, which they said was a bargain.
Chump change, man.
But
Chump change.
they bought it from Kaiser for millions of dollars. So they
actually inflated it. They built
Yeah.
it up and built it some. So Big Daddy Chrysler gets in and says, "I'll save you."
yeah.
And buys up the sinking ship that was the conglomeration of AMC controlled by Renault.
And at that point, AMC had decided to update the ailing old straight six
Right.
and come out with this new
4.2.
4.0.
4.2.
Yep.
But we're still using a French ignition system, basically.
Well, fuel injection system.
Yes, fuel injection system.
Yes. Yes.
So we have then, because at that point in time, the French are still heavily involved in the design.
Yep.
So we update the 258.
Yep.
Um,
And we make it a little smaller. We make it a 242
Yep.
cubic inch. Has a little bit less stroke, but bigger bore.
Right.
And we go with French fuel injection on it, which, you know,
And closed
We all-
cooling system. So here's
we all
what
know as the Renix era.
we know as the Renix era. So now we finally see a 4.0.
Yep.
This is the birth of the 4.0.
And they modified the firewall to make it fit since that guy didn't want that to happen.
And interestingly enough, somehow they modify going forward as well.
They do.
Because you and I actually had a
the hoods are different.
The hoods are different. So
Yep.
fun fact. The hoods produced 84 to 86 are different,
Yep.
where the latch mechanism
Yep.
attaches, than 87 plus. Now, they can actually still be interchanged with a little bit of metalwork and,
The ingenuity stuff.
ingenuity.
Yeah.
But they do redesign that. Now, what I have religiously said, and I have owned an 89 Renix era XJ.
Mm-hmm.
It has a closed cooling system and it had a fuel injection system ahead of its time. The reality of the situation, if you hear nothing else in this conversation about these old Jeeps, they're actually more like today's Jeeps and vehicles than they ever were. And the reason they didn't fly then is because we in America understood carburetors
Hammers.
and hammers. And that
This
French
was unlike
technology
anything we had ever seen.
was unlike anything we had seen. It was arguably 30 years ahead of its time.
Yep.
And the dealerships didn't know how to work on them. The individual garages didn't know
Yep.
how to work on them. And so therefore they were junk.
Yep. And if you have a Renix that runs well, you really like it.
Yep.
When you have to work on it, that's when the hate starts.
Yes, and there's not any. There's very little aftermarket support for them at this
Yes.
point. It's an ailing breed. Most of those were honestly crushed in cash for clunkers.
Yes.
We lost a huge swath of that history in that
Mhm.
time frame, in that endeavor, cash for clunkers there. But that Renix era engine resembles a lot of what the XJ will eventually have. But it in of itself was
And it had some
technologically ahead of its
leftovers.
time.
You know, in the 80s, it couldn't get it done without 15 foot of vacuum hose
Right.
and a little air horn that's screwed down to the throttle body, and you can't take it off easy. And if you do, it gets really upset. Ask me how you know.
Scott L just joined us saying good morning from the West Coast.
Hey, Scott. Yeah, he's up and early. He's out in the enjoying the mountains. Trying to Jeep life explore out there. I think.
Yep. and it was just amazing. They also had the wiring issues of the other
Of the same era issues.
Yep.
So they were plagued, with manufacturing and limited budget and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Per usual.
But for a moment, they actually started to realize we actually have a hit on our hands.
Right.
Another thing that blew my mind a little bit, but that makes sense. Blazer did not offer a 4-door, and the Bronco 2 did not offer a 4-door. So we had a lighter, superior build was what they felt with
Yes.
the unibody. 4-door option suddenly. So that
Yes.
is why you don't see the 2-door XJ immediately
because
they're flexing.
They're flexing, right? And as Americans they like 4 doors, right?
Yep.
We've seen a continued trend away from the 50s, 60s coupe era,
Yes.
where we wanted two doors.
Yep.
And arguably in that 80s era, plus we're going, hey, I like more doors.
Yeah.
I like to tote my garbage around.
Yep.
In my dumpster XJ. So,
Yes.
there's a lot of cool things happening, both globally and on an auto manufacturer's level. The vehicles themselves are really gnarly. People are starting to use them as far as, the CJs were off-roading and being raced. The YJs are starting on the scene. Full-frame vehicles. The
I
XJ.
gotta go back 2 seconds too. Something I forgot.
Okay.
84. It was 4x4 of the year.
Correct. It was released and then beat out the Blazer and the Bronco 2
with one tire.
and it
tied
actually
behind its
did.
It got
actually-
three awards
It
that year.
won all 3. It won the Triple Crown.
back. And also in that era, you could get a Wagoneer XJ, which was the Cush limited version. And for a brief moment, that was the vehicle to steal.
That was the highest theft rate, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's interesting. The Wagoneer XJ, which has always been near and dear to my heart, and I would love to own one, bucket list Jeep still. It had typically a wood grain sticker
Is there
motif.
any other way?
There shouldn't be. And they wanted to make sure that it had an up level trim package on the interior, and ultimately they differentiated it from the XJ, the Cherokee, by giving it more headlights because it's America and we like more.
So they actually made a Wagoneer that had the XJ headlights, but it had a much tighter grille fill. And then they had the quad headlight as well.
Interesting. And ultimately in that time frame in the 80s, Jeep was using the Wagoneer insignia as they now use the Grand, right?
Correct.
Or up until the most recent Wagoneer, production.
That's
that was
when
released.
the full size.
I got an
became
audio
brands.
question for you on these.
Okay.
Did they come standard with a cassette deck at this time, or was that an upchurch?
I was up,
So the Wagoneer had a tape deck.
but
nice.
everything else was just AM/FM, I think, right?
Right. That's kind of what I thought, but for some of our listeners that may not know
Might
what a
not
cassette
put that in
is,
perspective,
And
right?
for those that don't know, just a regular stripper model Cherokee, you got those speakers
Yes. Yes. 2 speakers
in the front.
in
that
the
was
whole in the whole Jeep, right?
Yep.
And ultimately, it's important to note this was a unit body construction. This
Yep.
was the first time.
Which
that-
is another important thing to say. AMC had been doing that forever.
and that's your Eagle conversation
Yep.
that Colleen had brought up.
Since the 50s, they were
but
one of the first
Jeep-
unitized.
Jeep themselves.
Yes.
This was the first true full unibody. They're really
Yep.
embracing new age manufacturing technologies. So, of course, all of us with our full frames,
Yes.
this ain't good. It doesn't have a frame.
Yes.
And we fought with that. I kid you not, into the 2000s.
Yes, we did.
Because and still, I get a pleasant chuckle when I see people mention they have a body lift on their XJ Cherokee.
Yes.
Because they just don't know any better. Because you
Yes.
can body lift, a
And
Blazer.
I think the original guys really had fun with it too, because they're like, okay, we see you. We're gonna bring a pickup truck then.
Yes.
And there comes the Comanche.
And there comes the Comanche, which I don't even want to get into because
Yeah.
my love affair will
I
send
figured we
me
got
over
at
the
least
edge.
briefly mention
Oh,
it.
you teased it. You teased it.
Yes.
that'll be after this series of XJs are
we can go
antique.
just in the Comanches.
Just in the Comanches.
That could be a multi-part episode in
So
itself.
Probably could.
So sort me out here. Was the Bronco 2 a full frame?
Yes.
And the S10 Blazer was a semi-frame, right?
Nope.
Oh, it was a full frame.
Full frame.
So ultimately, here you go. Think of the gravity of what's happening in the manufacturers. That in 1984, a unit body construction wins the Triple Crown 4x4 of the year.
Yep.
This
More interior
is
space because you can.
right. This is revolutionary, folks. This is
Yes.
what then lays the seed. This thing is like, hey, we've got something here, and as an auto industry, as the general consumer, we don't pick it up right away.
Yep.
Through the Renix era, and I think things really get froggy into the HO era.
100%.
And as much as I would love to talk about HO era stuff, I think we gotta shut it down.
That's
And
that's not next week.
I
but the
thought
week
we were
after
gonna
that.
make it. I thought we were gonna make it all the way to 96.
You should
Yeah.
know better.
I thought we were. but
91 to 96 is its own era, in my
it's
opinion.
its own era. 91 to 96 is
Yep.
its own era. I can't wait to talk about it. But
we
you're
got
gonna
2
have to
eras
join
out of
us.
the way. We're good.
We did, and we'll have 2 eras to talk about going forward.
Yep.
And you're going to join us not next week, but the following week. So you don't want to miss next week. It's with our conversation with Tech Tire, and the following week we'll be coming back into Antique XJs. But right now we're going to take a moment, transition to hashtag not sponsored.
And now it's time for our product spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Spotlight.
Hashtag not sponsored.
I will Vanna White-ish. Oh my gosh, Scott's rubbing off on me.
Wow.
We've been saying that for a while now.
I'm going to just frame my face here for
at
those
that.
who are not who are not viewing in.
And
I
For not
have-
having a monitor, you're dead on that.
I know, Jeffrey. Where's our monitor?
Yeah.
So
So what is this, Jeff?
What is this, Jeffrey?
That is the bezel for an Alpine, the i509 WRA JK. It's an Alpine restyle.
Mm-hmm.
So this bezel actually replaces the factory bezel. You actually have to cut it off
Yep.
of the dash
Yep.
to put this new one in. Not only are you cutting that factory bezel out, but you're also cutting out part of the factory mounts that held in the old head
Because
unit.
we're updating the old technology to a larger screen, to betterish things.
Right. So I can my interest, if you continue to list, is kind of business and processes and whatnot. Alpine is, in our opinion, and we can't not confirm nor deny this. So maybe
Well,
somebody
I have
out
a
there
little
in
bit
the
of
world.
information.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing that. Is somewhere involved in the production of the Uconnect streamline, right? So
Yep.
the Uconnect is the factory stereo that comes in our JK Jeeps.
Yep.
JK Wranglers, and arguably even our newest JLs. But ultimately, somewhere along the line, much like we talk about these global relationships, the Alpine may or may not have their hand in the OE manufacturing process, even if it's just networking and social knowledge or professional knowledge. So the Restyle package was released about 5, 6, 7 years ago. As we know it, for Wranglers. The one we're going to be talking about today is the creme de la creme, right? It's the big dog. They do, however, offer several different packages, more standardized 7-inch screen, double DIN applications that we've done installs into customers' Jeeps with. And then they have your standard single DIN that if you wanted to retrofit your AM/FM Cherokee from 87, we could put an Alpine in there as well.
Mhm.
But this particular Alpine package, is this what size screen is this? Do we know offhand? Besides huge?
Off the top of my head, I don't
Oh,
know.
It's a huge screen.
Yeah.
And
Let me down, Jeff.
Well, you
What-
know what? I wanted to point out while you had the bezel up, though, what I like about it is it actually reuses the vents.
Mm-hmm.
You remove them from the old one, plug them right in. It also has the window control.
Yeah, it
Mount
makes it
opening.
look factory.
It looks like it was factory.
And that's what everybody says about when SFJ does these installs into customer vehicles. You don't know that this didn't come from the factory in your
right.
Jeep.
Yep.
And that's what's valuable for us as professionals.
So I have a little bit of history on Alpine.
I love it. Lay it on us.
Alpine Electronics Inc. Started in 1967 as Alps/Motorola, a joint venture between Alps Electronic and U.S.-based Motorola. Became Alpine Electronics in 1978 when Alps bought out Motorola.
I did not know that. I also didn't know that Motorola was U.S. based.
Mm-hmm.
I did know that one, but I didn't know the other part.
So where they started dabbling with OE supply
Yes.
is in 1977. A cassette radio is used as OEM on the Lamborghini automobiles.
Woo!
And then they used that in their advertisements from there on.
Yes, they did.
Absolutely.
Yes, they did.
And then, and honestly, they did not. That's before it became Alpine Electronics, even.
Okay.
And then 78 is when they changed the name and then actually made it a place in Germany with that. 79, they opened up a place in Canada. 85, they opened it up in the UK. And then 86 was France.
Nice little history there.
And
Of course, we bring it back to France.
France.
And in the early 80s, they were also dabbling in with the Honda Accord radio that was in those. So it does not come out and say they are in with Stellantis with their electronics, but they're in there with their
they're in there
electronics.
somewhere.
You can
right?
infer it a little bit.
There's some inference, and that's it's always valuable. I oftentimes talk about Bestop and their heavy hand in Stellantis' application, and I've had one or two people be like, "No, prove it" on like our YouTube videos, and I'm like, all right, you know what? 20 years. I'm telling you, that's what it is, right?
They all play golf together.
Yeah, they all play golf, you know, or they all off road together. However you want to, conceptualize that. So this specific product, the i509, is it's a heavy hitter for us. It's just a reality situation. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, price point is $2,100 or $2,200.
Yeah.
That's just the product. Do you know how many of these we sell and install? A bunch.
Yep.
And the reason is because it is a value-packed product, right? A double DIN system is a double DIN, right, or a single DIN, and that's how we talk about the size of the actual
itself.
head, the head of the radio itself, or if you're GM, DIN and a half.
Yes.
Which was so
flexing.
Thank you, GM. Might as well be Ford. So realistically speaking, there's the 7 and 9 inch conceptualizations of the stereos. That'll reasonably 7-inch fits pretty well in a JK right now with some modification to its factory bezel to get this big beautiful bezel, which is fully touchscreen, fully integrated. It has full integration to the vehicle.
I'm getting a lot of comments that the sound cut out on us. I hope that's better. Does everybody hear us?
Nope. Can you hear us? Can we?
So it's at Lost Audio. Ironic, since you're talking about audio, using inside voices apparently. My lip reading stinks. Better.
Oh, Jeffrey, what did you do on the production side?
I don't know. Sounds back.
I think I think it's Big Mama Stellantis. She doesn't want us to tell her secrets. Is what it was.
I'm curious at what point we lost audio. Like, what's the last thing people heard, so we can try to.
When we were talking about. No, it was when we were talking about integration. You know what I mean? Like, these who's playing golf with whom? You know?
Yeah.
So I will wrap this up and say that this specific product. What's so valuable about it is its high level of integration with the vehicle. It actually uses a software called Maestro. Maestro is, it's the man behind the curtain, if you will. And so it's a computer control interface that you, as the consumer, the customer, unless you're doing the install yourself, you're never going to be exposed to it. But on the back end, we actually have to program and tell it stuff. So it's the concept of flashing a computer to communicate fully with your Jeep.
So we lost audio just after the golf stuff and GM's DIN and a half. So yes, Stellantis shut us down.
Stellantis, shut us down. We see you. You didn't miss anything. It was just us rambling on about, the cool aspects of the Alpine.
Why we love it.
Why we love it and why it's so great.
The integration, the ability, the buttons.
It's a 9-inch. Jeffrey, I think Jeffrey cobbed up the audio when he was searching the Jugal.
Let him in.
That's probably
he
what
let
happened.
him in. They hacked the back door of the audio system.
That's exactly what
when
happened.
He was jugling. This is a 9-inch display that becomes fully integrated. There's a couple other AV, audio manufacturers making units for, to retrofit into our JKs. I do think they're cool. They have basically a big giant tablet, kind of looks like a Tesla. But ultimately, if you're off-roading, The questions I would have for that application then is A,
I didn't see that rock.
how weather tight is it, and B, how exposed to debris and you grabbing gears, or if your GMRS, your mic falls down and hammers into this thing, because now that tablet-ish display is hanging off the
plus
screen.
it's taller. The ones I've seen are taller because you're limited by the vents how low you can go.
Yes.
So now you're above the dash.
Now you have to go up over the
So
dash.
now you've lost small vehicles and children in your line of sight.
Yes. So I dig that particular product. I'll be honest. I'll just come out there and say Stinger makes that product. I actually think it looks very nice. I don't think the integration is bad, but I prefer everything about this.
This is more OE.
This is more that I always tell people that the challenge with SFJ 4x4 is that I don't want you as the customer to know that we were in your Jeep, right?
Yes.
I want the sticker, that branding, that you want to rep one of our shirts, our hats, or whatever gear. Cool, obviously a fanny pack. I want that to be the case.
No, we're going to talk about the fanny pack for a second. Because we were Davey and I were talking about the media production of the Dayton Off-Road Expo and how we're going to do this. And I said, now with all this new audio equipment that I have to carry, I got to figure out a way to do that. And he immediately goes, grab a fanny pack.
Fanny pack.
I'm not using a fanny pack.
Fanny pack, Jeffrey.
I refuse.
Jeffrey, you should have your fanny pack.
I will wear a tool belt for the audio before I wear
a tool belt.
Oh my God, we should go, and you should wear a tool belt, and I will wear a fanny pack. We'll get him like an OD, like a canvas,
I'm not wearing a tool
military
belt or a
like
bag.
bag. You know what I mean? Like a man bag, but canvas military. A second bag.
No
and
bag.
Davey can rock his knockoff Supreme fanny pack bag that he got at SEMA. Oh my gosh, it's on. We're gonna do it.
I think we need pocket protectors if we're doing all that.
Oh God,
folks! If you have questions about the i509 Alpine, it's in house. Jeffrey is an install expert at this point. We've all done a portion of it. We know about the electronic integration. We'd love to talk with you more about it. You can hit us on our text only number 440-855-2100. You can email us at jeffc@sfj4x4.com or contact contact@sfj4x4.com. And you want to know more about this, or maybe get it installed in your vehicle because it's just that cool. Make a great Valentine purchase. As a total sales pitch, in the month of February, we are doing free mountain balance with tire and wheel packages. So if you're in the area and you're in need of some new summer rubber, or you want to just have that immediate gratification, that is a good promo. Save you a couple $100 there. And man, you're gonna have to come back. You got couple weeks of good content ready and something to look forward to on Mondays.
I just want to put it out there. Dale said, sorry, Neil. I agree with Jeff on the fanny pack.
Dale, you've got a fanny pack coming in the future, buddy. Folks,
how to get free merch from Neil. Tell him you hate it.
I am an equal opportunity offender. This is what I've said. Folks, I've had a great time. I hope you did as well. You have questions, reach out to us. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram, both personally and professionally. Lots of good updates. We've got busy jobs here in the shop. Get scheduled now before the summer rush. And look for the coming episodes of I Speak Jeep. It's going to be awesome. You don't want to miss it. And
real quick, I want to give a shout out to our current Patreon subscribers.
So we got a bunch. It's growing.
It's growing. And I'm hoping I'm not going to miss any of the names. But as we rattle through them real quick, thank you to Chuck, to Chip, to Kevin, Dale, Patrick.
Mark. Yep.
I believe that's the list right now.
I think that's pretty comprehensive. And
isn't Paul on there?
Oh, Paul.
Okay.
Paul. So, yep. It's growing. So, again, if you haven't been to the Patreon, go check it out. See what it's about. There's 3 different tiers. You can subscribe.
Yeah, they've
to
got
different
some.
levels.
They've already got some video from SEMA that was deleted scenes and not available information. They got some other pictures. They got some audio, I believe.
There's a bunch of teasers from the other podcasts that you and I are working on. Just little short clips to give you an inside look at what it's going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And don't forget the Discord where we tell you how to store your projects you don't want your wife to know about.
Yeah, I think we leave it for Valentine's Day on that one.
Yep.
So until then, Jeep family, Jeep on.
Jeep on.
Jeep on.